Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Troy with Stickwood Bros. In today's video, I am starting my biggest project yet. I am starting to build my big plywood aquarium. We're gonna start that whole process, show what I have in store, show all the products I'm gonna be using, and really get started on this. And I'm also gonna reveal how big the aquarium is going to be, which is definitely very big for my aquariums down here in my basement. So let's get right into it, guys. Let's dive right in. So really quick, just the current layout of my basement fish room. I have my desk here with my 15-gallon saltwater tank. I have the 180-gallon acrylic aquarium, and if you remember, this is probably the biggest aquarium I could fit down the stairs of my basement, which is a major reason I wanted to build this plywood aquarium, not only to save costs on a big tank, but also because I couldn't get a tank of that size down in my basement. So there's really two main reasons I'm building this plywood aquarium. So that is my 150-gallon tank, and this is glass, and it's probably the biggest glass aquarium that I could fit down here. Remember, acrylic's a little lighter when it's empty, so that was a little easier to get down here, but overall both were really tricky to get down here in my basement. Then over here the lights are off, but I have my 135 African cichlid tank. Then right to the left with my discus aquarium, this is where it's all going to happen. Okay guys, so the first step is clean out everything behind me and get the space ready for the new tank. Okay, so we got this area cleaned, prepped, and ready for the new tank build to start. I cleaned out the aquarium equipment and the shelving unit. I put it in my fish room. Now we have all this space to work with. Can't wait to start. Next up, we have to go pick up the lumber and the plywood from Home Depot. Let's go. So this is the first DIY plywood aquarium that I have built, but I have a pretty good idea of what all is needed after doing a ton of research. I picked up 2x4s, 2x6s, and of course the plywood. I'll be keeping a running total of the cost for this build, which I'll go over once the whole project is finished. All materials I used throughout the process will be linked in the description of the video. I started by measuring out my cuts and using a miter saw that I had already. The cost of these builds could definitely go up if you don't already have some of those power tools. The miter saw helped make some of those clean, precise cuts. And guys, before we go any further, just wanted to call out that this is not a how-to series on building a plywood aquarium. This is my first time doing it, and I'm just going to show you my process. I did a ton of research, so I'm really confident in the steps I'm taking, but there might be some mistakes I make. I already made a few errors when cutting the boards and had to redo those, among other things.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
But in all seriousness, I do not want any type of leak or failure in this aquarium, so I prepped myself as best as possible to be able to build this and build it correctly. But with that being said, you probably want to check out some other sources with more experience if you want to build a plywood aquarium of your own. Hopefully all goes well, but either way, we're going along for the journey. So let's start building the tank stand now. Okay, so I made the base of the stands with the 2x4s, just 2 layers of it, kind of interlacing and a bunch of screws going in, so it's really firm. Now we're going to make the uprights, the guides, and the actual supports for the top of the tank stand here, and we'll do that with 2x4s and then the top layer with 2x6s. So before I start cutting the guides and the uprights, I went ahead and put the sump here. This is going to be a main reason I go with the height I do of the tank stand. Obviously, I would love to have the higher the better on the stand, but I can't go too high because of the ceilings in my basement. So I definitely want a few inches above the sump to be able to get into it and also plumb the sump later on. And that's why I'm kind of dry fitting it here. And I kind of want to go up to about 33 inches. The sump will be on a couple of boards here at the bottom, but that will give me about 5 to 6 inches above the sump to play with, so that I can access it, clean it, and everything else I need to do. And because the base of the stand is already a few inches high, we will subtract that from the 33 inches that we need here. So I cut the 2x4s to two different lengths, one for the guides, one for the support. We're going to be putting that along the tank stand here. Let's start doing that now. So now we have the uprights and the guides in place. Now we have the 2x6s cut in these two sections. One is going to be going right here, and the other one is going right here. So we have the corner clamps on. We're going to screw this all in place and screw it onto the stand. And I think you'll see what I'm trying to do here once it all comes together. And there's Rambo helping. Okay, so the stand is now complete. It took a ton of screws. You probably can't see just how many went into this, but everywhere has extra screws, extra support. Everywhere I could have doubled up, I did. I also have my seamless sump underneath the stand here just to kind of see how everything's going to come together. And there's plenty of space under the stand here to plumb this later on. So once the tank is built, we'll plumb down to the sump and we'll have the filtration. So yeah, we have the stand ready here. You can see it's a pretty big stand when it's all put together and on camera. I don't know if the camera could pick up just how big this is. I might go through, since I have a couple extra 2x4s, and add another little support between each of the legs here. It's not really needed, I don't think, but probably can't hurt. I also might add a 2x6 between these supports here. It wouldn't be structural, but it would be something that I could attach, you know, cabinetry, and just finishing the stand later on, I could have something to screw into, and then I could do the same on the back. So step one is now complete. The tank stand is ready to go. Like I mentioned, I might add a few modifications in a little bit, but the next step is going to be cutting the plywood sheets and then making the shell of this plywood aquarium. And as mentioned, this is not a how-to video. This is my first time building something on this scale. I did a ton of research, watched a lot of good YouTubers, forums, and different Facebook groups, just as much as I could learn before I started the process. But this is probably not going to be perfect. There's probably going to be mistakes that I do make, and I will mention those throughout the series that I make on this plywood aquarium. All that being said, for someone that is doing this for the first time, this is about as confident as I could be because of the amount of research and prep work I did. I have a lot of the materials right here that we'll go through really quick before we say exactly how big this aquarium is going to be. But as you can see here, we have the pond shield, which is going to be one of the most important parts of waterproofing this aquarium. We also have some paint rollers and paint brushes, which will add the pond shield onto the plywood. We have a ton of screws, which is key for building not only the tank stand, but connecting the plywood pieces together, and then the top braces and the window frame as well. I have latex gloves. I have containers to mix some of the pond shield and fiberglass. The silicone here will be used for the glass panel that I already have ordered. Should be here in a couple days. Plenty of time for us to get everything else ready to go. The wood glue is really important for connecting those plywood pieces along with the screws. I bought a new sander since I didn't have one of those, but I will be using that between sheets of the pond shield and after the fiberglass. I have different mats of fiberglass which will be used on the seams of the plywood aquarium. I have the fiberglass resin and the hardener, which will attach it to the plywood, making it waterproof. And we'll go through step by step of what I do once the plywood shell is built and ready to go. It's going to be an interesting process, but I'm going to show each step along the way in case you want to try and follow what I do. But I would just like to give props to, obviously, Joey, the king of DIY. Watched all of his plywood builds. That was a huge influence. And also Aquarium Domain. He has a ton of huge plywood aquarium builds, and this tank stand is really following his footprint. as well as the tank itself. My tank might be a little bigger than the how-to video series that he did, but it will still be very similar to what he did in that video series, as you can tell from the tank stand being pretty much the exact replica. So I'm sure the question most of you have right now is, how big is this aquarium going to be? Well, the dimensions are 76 inches long, 42 inches front to back, and about 33 to 34 inches tall. And that puts us right around 420 to 430 gallons.
Oh my sweet Jesus.
I will also have a seamless sump with another 40 to 50 gallons, so we're right around 475 in terms of total gallons, and this thing is just going to be a beast. It's really going to open up some really cool stocking options down here in my basement, and I really can't wait to finish it and just show you what I have in store. And along with this tank, I'm also going to be cleaning up the walls behind it and around it before putting it in its final spot to really make this whole area functional and a place that I want to be all the time, hanging out with my fish in my new aquarium. I'm also going to get a new light because I run into this string repeatedly. So just overall upgrades going to be happening all over the place, especially in this nook of my basement. So there is a lot going on, and I am going to be providing video updates as fast as I can get those out, as fast as I can get this tank made. I'm obviously going to take my time and make sure I do it right, but you know what I mean. I'm going to get those updates out to you as fast as I can. But if you would like to see the completion of this project, definitely consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate your support. Really excited to show updates, guys. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.